Jordan here. Something that's always been a mystery is tech salaries and the concept that people in tech are not necessarily paid for the value they bring. A lot of it is based on where they provide value or where they are when they're working to provide the value. Um, Having lived in or done tech in Jamaica, Costa Rica, and the US, I have seen a lot of differences in how people are paid and how people are paid for doing the same work, as well as transparency in salaries and what that means for people who are trying to negotiate their tech salary. So, in terms of the differences, I think number one would be across these three countries is how much you're going to get paid. You're going to get paid a lot differently based on the country you're in because number one, the cost of living is definitely higher in some countries versus others. When I left Jamaica, I think the minimum wage at that time was $5,000 per week. That's less than $50. In Costa Rica when I left, I think it was about, was it $500 a month? So that would be about $100 per week. That was what the minimum wage was. So of course you'd expect that this salary in tech would be, when you look at the level in terms of, if you want to call them blue collar job, white collar jobs, and I don't know, menial jobs or whatever it is, the tech salaries would be different in relation to that. In the US, I'm not sure what the minimum wage is. I think maybe it's about 30,000. At the poverty line, etc. So, and it could be less depending if the person is single, etc. So, knowing this, the salary definitely is going to be higher. And I'm not looking at the nuances in terms of where you live, because if you live in the San Francisco Bay Area, you're looking at a one bedroom for maybe 2,000 above, and 2,000 is what I'm seeing now. That the prices are dropping because of the coronavirus. If you live in New York, depending on where you are, you're probably looking at close to the same amount for rent, depending on where you want to live, in proximity to the subway, etc. You can choose to live in more rural areas. Well, not rural in the Jamaica sense, but in areas that are close to the train line and not that urban, and you could pay less than 2,000, right? Maybe 1,500 or less. And of course, your if you lived in, I'm trying to think somewhere else, like in Florida, in some places in Florida, based on the comparisons in salaries, you'll be making a bit less, right? Because the rent, unless you live in the heart of Miami, is going to be less. So you're definitely paid for where you live. It is. I when the pandemic started, people started speaking about the fact that they were moving out of the city. They wanted to maintain their salaries, right? And my opinion on that is that if you're no longer having the same expenses based on where you live, yes, they're doing the same work, but from what I've seen across countries, it is fair for your salary to be readjusted, so that you still will be significantly well off, but it's more adjusted to the where you're living. I know companies offer relocation for some of them, their colleagues, to move to like cheaper states, and they had to take a pay cut, which would probably still work out to them earning a lot more. Because if you see the houses, for example, in Houston and the prices that they're for, what you can get is awesome based on what you get for the money in New York or California. So there's that one bit of it. You're definitely going to be paid for based on the economy that you live in. Whether you agree with that or not, it's kind of different, right? Just to kind of bring up this SARS thing, I know that I was reading on Twitter that it seems that one of the arguments are that for guys in tech or people in tech, they're making really good money, which is good for the economy. They get to help their family, but because the police, they're not accustomed to people, young boys making so much money or young girls making so much money. They're looking at them as scammers, etc., and they're stereotyping them. Not saying I don't want people to make money. Make your money. But this is something that I guess maybe the companies are looking at, if you are being paid at a California rate, for example, and you're living in Jamaica, you're probably making more money than the Prime Minister himself, and probably the President of the United States. I don't know. I think I saw a salary once, and it seemed in line with a dev salary. But so yes, that's definitely what happened. Breaking it down, when I got my first tech job in Jamaica, I was getting paid less than $400 a month. I was told, oh, you had to be like a temp contract worker until we figure out whether or not you're good enough to take you on. So I was going to work every day, paying bus fare out of that. As you can tell, that's not a lot of money, even 13 years ago. And I was being told, oh, you'll be put on contract soon. You'll be put on permanent soon. We'll let you know. We'll let you know. And then afterwards, I was told, when I kept trying to chase the manager to find if I was going to be made permanent, he was like, oh, no, I mean, I don't think you're a good fit. You should find the next job. I'm like, okay. And I reached out to a couple people, and I did a couple interviews, went nowhere until I finally got a job that more than doubled, if not tripled. I don't remember my salary, and I was so happy, because what that guy was doing was taking recent graduates into his company, and he was putting them on contracts so he didn't have to pay taxes, etc., and kind of recycling the process, like a new person every couple months, so he didn't have to pay taxes on. That's what it seemed to me. And speaking to some other persons who went through the same process at the same company, that seemed to have been their plan. So, yeah, so that's what I was making. In my second job, basically, it would have been over a million Jamaican, a million something, maybe 1,100,000 for the first year, or something like that, and then it gradually increased. I don't remember what I was making when I left. I know it was definitely under 2 million, maybe 1.5-ish, because the government, your salaries within a particular band, and at least that is public knowledge. They do have the bands listed publicly, so it's not something that's totally a secret. Right, so when I was making that, and it's just comfortable enough at the time in Jamaica. You can pay your rent, pay your bills. If you have a family and that's the only salary you're dependent on, that will be hard. But of course, that tends to be the case in a lot of countries, especially if you're living in the urban areas and you want to do private school, etc., right? The economy in Costa Rica is a bit different. They have a lot of free zone areas, a lot of companies competing. I would say if I was going to go like dollar for dollar, maybe moving there, dollar for dollar was close to doubling my salary. But there are a lot of things that are different. For example, the fact that I then did not own a car there. I was not paying for a car loan. And my dollar for dollar, if you try to translate it, my rent would then have more than doubled at that point. So there are things that are totally different. So just showing that when you move countries, especially moving to a more developed country, then you will reap some rewards in terms of your salary per se, right? So this is how where you live plays into how much you make. And of course, certain expenses were definitely higher. School is definitely higher, because the language difference and having to pay for private school. So there are definitely benefits to that. Quality of life, I think, improved, especially because I did not have that long commute anymore. I lived super close to everything, and when I started driving, it became way easier. And then because there was so much competition for devs, in Costa Rica, you were able to get raises a bit sooner by moving companies, and you had a mandated raise, even though it's like 2% or something. It's still something, and you had a Christmas bonus that was mandatory. So yeah, I mean, it's just totally different. So moving from Jamaica, you're like, okay, you have these things paying, and this is the salary. I went to an interview once, I remember, in Jamaica, and it was for what do you call it, a merchant bank or something? or building society or something, and I did the interview. And when they asked what my expected salary was, and I told them something close to what I was making then, because I wanted to leave the company. I didn't even need a raise, and they basically didn't call me back. And when I told them the number, I think I saw their faces, because they didn't want to pay that, because the company I left was one of the companies that paid higher on the spectrum for tech workers. So it was really hard to move. The economy was just not that. Do I say the economy, or people were just not paying that much, and there was just not that big competition for devs. No matter what your talents are, I think it would still be hard. Unless you made it into like an NCB, and Scotia did not have their tech department in Jamaica. I don't know if they did have it now, but I know they didn't at the time. So, and then there was like Digicel, and then Claro came in. So there's not that many companies. So in Costa Rica, you had a lot of companies. You had IBM, like VMware. You had Microsoft, Amazon. You had so many companies in these free zones, and so many nearshore companies that were working for big clients in the US, that the salaries were able to be higher. So there's that. And yeah, like you could negotiate a lot better, because the market was good. And then, to find developers who were fluent in English and had the experience, it was super hard. So people were just moving around a lot to get a raise, and the economy was just better. So moving to the US now, of course, it's a developed country, and of course the salaries are going to be scaled based on that. It being developed, you realize, okay, oh my god, I was working for this company, I was working for this US company, and this is what I was making, but I would be making twice that if I lived in the US, and I would probably be making 1/3 that if I was working for the same company from Jamaica. So this is how I would say tech money scales when you're looking, you're working in different countries and different economies. So, I posted once on Twitter, I think I mentioned it in another video, that the tech money is just not the same if you're looking at the fact that based on where you're working, where you're working, so your monthly salary could be less than $600, it could be less than $400. So no matter how hard you try, or no matter how many certificates you get, you will not be able to have the life that you could live working six figures, living in the Bay Area, working for six figures for a US company remotely in Nigeria or in Jamaica. And so just the amount of being paid based on where the company is, the value you bring, and etc., versus where you have to live. It's totally different. So yeah, I mean, for me, my advice to anyone who has the talents and has a skill is to just look at where you want to be and go for it. Some companies are now more open or more liberal towards the idea of hiring overseas workers. I saw there was this guy, Joel Dean, I think, I don't remember his name, from Jamaica, who is working for WordPress. Apparently he interviewed, and he got he was applying for his work permit, I think, and it didn't go through, but then the company decided to hire him like offshore. And I've had friends who were able to score a US company who paid them directly, and while they worked in their country, which meant they were able to make tons more than working for a local company who then had their overhead and rent to pay, government fees, etc. It worked out way better for them. So yeah, if you have the skill and stuff, go for it. You may have to do a lot, like the tech interviews, maybe a lot of rounds. You may have to search really diligently to find a company who's willing to sponsor, if you're going to go on site, or someone who can process the proper paperwork. I think it's going to be like a 1090 or so, to have like a contractor, and you would handle your taxes in your home country. But the coronavirus, in a sense, is bringing hope to the fact that many countries have had to adapt. And even people who previously had workers were on site because of visa issues, a lot of people had to go home or go to alternative countries. And this means if they want to keep these people on, they may have to look at how they can enable these people to work from their home countries, because they're now, providing value from a different place. Whether or not that includes salary adjustment would be up to the company and up to the person, right? Do they want to accept a really, really comfortable salary even and live in a cheaper place if that's the case? Or will the company want to adjust if, let's say, now they have to move to a more expensive state? So there are exceptions, of course. I found there are some countries that they are developed and the salary, let's say the dollar to dollar figure is not as significant as you expect because of what the benefits that are provided by the social system. For example, being high tax like Germany, etc., because they provide so much support to you, right? So some of these countries that have really great social system, the income tax is high, which means dollar for dollar you could be making less by moving. Let's say from Costa Rica to some countries in Europe. Let's say from Costa Rica to Italy, dollar for dollar you could be making less, and then your tax would be higher. The cost of living day to day could be cheaper, but let's say you had wanted to save money, or you had a mortgage back somewhere else that you had to pay, it could end up not working out for you. So it's not always as simple as the fact that move to a more developed country or get a job in a more developed country, you're going to automatically have these, this big savings, or you have this big, inflow of cash. It's not always the same. For example, me personally, I got an offer once in Germany, in Berlin, and I had to turn it down because when I looked at, I think they were offering close to 60,000 euro, and which wasn't bad, and it is not a bad salary. But when I calculated the tax and the private school expenses, etc., it did not seem doable for me at that time. So it was just not something I could do. But depending on who you are, and if you're single especially, that could be super great. That would definitely be okay to live in. So yep, this is my perspective on tech salaries and how where you live affects how much you get paid, how moving countries can help you get paid, how moving countries can have an effect, on how much you get to save. That there's no direct correlation between the country being developed, meaning that you're going to be making more money dollar to dollar, but it could likely be moving to a stronger economy gives you that experience or the ability to make more money, especially if now you're getting paid in a stronger currency like the euros or the US dollars, right? So if you're looking to move to another country or just to get a job in a different area, just start searching. I'm not sure how good sites like Remote Jobs OK are at finding tech jobs. A lot of it may be word of mouth. I know a lot of the jobs they post in US ask if you're going to require sponsorship, and I don't know if you say yes, they're just going to discard your application, or if there's an opportunity to put a note and say want to work from remotely or whatever. But that's an option for you if you're a dev or a PO or a PM. I see a lot more roles for dev in this kind of space. So I really can't speak for other roles really, but with Corona and stuff, with companies really evaluating their space, their office space. One Jamaican company, Edifocal, edited by Gordon Swaby. I know that there was an article in the paper recently that he closed his office space and he's gone fully virtual. That could happen for a lot of smaller companies, and for even larger companies with office in expensive areas like New York, California, etc. It may be an opportunity for them to just look at their hiring strategy and try to mix it up for something that works for them and for the shareholders and for people in other economies, right? So, look into that or wait and see. Start looking around. Start checking in with your friends that you know at these companies to see where the head is at in terms of HR, or whether there's any news coming around about hiring people. And if that's what you're looking for, just let me know. If you need any tips, and I can give it, I surely pass it on. And let me know how your job search goes. Let me know if you find a great opportunity. Let me know if you have any other tips, any other stories that you want to share. And thanks for watching.